Welcome to Dove and Dragon Radio. I'm your host, M.L.Ruscsak. I'm here with special guest and author, Steve Borys. I'm going to butcher your name. If you watch this show or listen to it, you know I butcher almost every name that's on here.
It's okay. You can call me whatever you like. Just don't call me late for dinner.
There you go. I love that saying. So you have this book out, and I have it in front of me. It's called How to Beat Stalin, Hitler, and the Southern Park Beltway. So why this book?
It's a way to give back. Or rather to pay forward.
Okay.
In the title, Stalin, Hitler, and the Southern State Parkway, How to Beat Stalin, Hitler, and the Southern State Parkway, is all about how you deal with adversity and challenges in your life, whether they be historic, like Stalin and Hitler and having to overcome evil dictators, or it was like me, having to deal with losing my father in a car crash on the Southern State Parkway.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, all these challenges can be real. It could be, losing a job, divorce, dealing with COVID, right? They can all bring about your demise. They're all very real, but it's all how we react to these terrible situations and how we overcome adversity. That's the goal of the book. And in my life, I had a lot of adversity, and I had a tremendous amount of help. And as I was sitting around during the COVID pandemic the last 2 years, like everybody else, with stress and anxiety, and seeing my children struggle and friends and family and myself, my goodness, I was, going through some hard times and some dark places. I said, what could I do to try to give back and try to help folks in these difficult times? And so that's why I wrote this book.
That is a wonderful meaning. I mean, it doesn't matter where you're from, what you do. It doesn't matter if you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth. We all know the proverbial silver spoon, or if you're born in the projects. You all have to overcome whatever obstacles that are in your life.
Absolutely. And that's what I was trying to do here, is give people hope for a better tomorrow. Because if you have hope, you can do anything.
You can.
And it's when you're down in the dumps and feeling despair, the smallest things can throw you out of whack and just start snowballing. And I was hoping that the stories told in this book could get people fired up and get them back in the fight.
We can hope. That's always the good thing, right? We can hope that the book gets the meaning out there that, yes, there is hope. Yes, we can overcome whatever the problem is, and we can move forward.
Right. Absolutely. Would you want me to tell you a little bit about the book?
Please.
Sure. It kind of starts off with me sitting with my mom at the kitchen table, having some late night chats. We were both insomniacs, both stressed out and terrified about the next day. As I said, my father died on a car crash. I was about 5 years old. I had a sister, she was about 2, and that just devastated our family. We had left, I was born in the Bronx. We moved out to Long Island, to the suburbs to live the American dream, with the 1/4-acre house and the, 1.5 baths and the whole deal. And we were doing it until he got killed. And that just started a downward spiral for me. I was overweight. I was being bullied mercilessly by students and in some cases some teachers as well. And I was learning disabled. I was flunking out of school. And I was starting to think some really dark thoughts. I was starting to think the unthinkable and did not see a reason to go on. And that's when my mother, started to really come through for me with these midnight chats. And at first, she was starting off like any mom, right? Oh, you're beautiful, you're handsome, you're a genius. How moms are. And,
I'm a mom, so I know all the speeches to give to any child because I've been in them, supposedly.
You scribble on a piece of paper, oh, you're Picasso, one of those. And, mom, you're out of your mind. You're crazy. You're just a crazy mom and all that. And she said, well, then she started to get a little bit firmer with me. And she said, you're not the first person to have problems. And I said, okay, got serious. And she goes, let me tell you about your Ukrainian grandmother, my father's mother, who actually died in the car crash with him, my babcha. And I go, babcha? What about babcha? I only knew her as a 5-year-old before she passed away. And all I remembered was the apple strudel she made. I was an overweight kid. So, of course, I identified people by the food they brought.
Of course.
And I said, well, okay, what about her and her apple strudel? Well, it wasn't just apple strudel, she said. She says, your babcha was basically a superhero. I said, superhero? What are you talking about, superhero? And she says, yeah. She said, when she was your age, at this point, I was a middle school kid. She wasn't dealing with your problem. She had a little bit different. She had Joseph Stalin. And at that point, the Ukraine where she grew up was under Soviet control. And he wanted to break the Ukrainian people. And so to do that, he enacted what became known as the Holodomor, or Great Hunger, and went on to kill about over 4 to 6 million Ukrainians, starved them to death. And it's one of the most brutal acts of genocide most people never even heard of.
Mm-mm. Unless you're a history buff, you don't know what Stalin did.
Absolutely. And that was just one of his many atrocities. And my goodness, starved to death. And she goes into graphic detail how they came farm to farm and killed people and took food. And she just had to watch her loved ones with her, and many died. And I said, my goodness, how did they deal with this? And they said, well, they did it together. The family stuck together. They also started to have a belief that one day the family would have a great life again. And that's what inspired them to survive. That one day, maybe it wasn't going to be them, maybe it was going to be their children or grandchildren. The family was going to be strong and be happy and be successful again. And that unity got them through that unspeakable time. And just when it ended and they started to get back on their feet, Hitler was now master of Germany. And in 1939, he starts World War II. And 2 years later, he invades the Soviet Union, mission known as Operation Barbarossa. And it's the largest land battle in the history of the world. Millions of men are fighting, and there's my babcha on the front line. And I'm going, oh my goodness, so now she's like a high schooler, maybe a little bit older than that. And her village is quickly captured. Now she's separated from her family, and she goes on, never sees another living family member again for the rest of her life, and is brought to a work camp and is made a slave. And that's what really blew my mind, was that my babcha for about 4 years of her life was a slave, captured by the Nazis and working for Hitler. And when she got to the camp, she didn't have anybody, she didn't have anything, she didn't have hope. But as she walked in, the babushkas got her, the old women of the camp. They saw this beautiful young girl by herself with nothing and nobody, and they came and they took her under their wing. And they put a babushka on her. They wanted to hide her beauty, which was not an asset in a slave labor camp surrounded by German guards. And they made her hunch down, and they actually smeared animal feces on her as another deterrent. Imagine that. And they got through that camp together. And they didn't have to. And that's one thing I always want to stress in the book, was that these women helped when they didn't have to. They helped because it was the right thing. And maybe they thought their granddaughter was in another camp, and they were hoping maybe somebody would do the right thing and take care of them. And in the camp, she met her husband, Eustace. They got married, in the camp. You couldn't really get married in the camp, but they had my father. My father was born into slavery in this work camp. And before you know it, Hitler commits suicide. The war's over. And she outlasted 2 dictators. And that to me was just absolutely mind-blowing, that this young girl was able to stand up to this evil and survive. But that was just the beginning. Her husband was murdered. They got to the United States by a miracle. And when they arrived here, they were homeless, sleeping on a park bench. Didn't have a penny to their name, didn't know anybody, didn't even know the language at that point. And my mother told me, well, you know what? They always believed that was a good start. And I just want you to think about that a little bit. You have nothing, you're a widow, no family, not a dime, and it's a good start. She had hope again that one day those kids could have me. I have kids now, and we're having nice, happy, successful lives. And that's how you go on and do it. That's how you deal with this unspeakable evil. You go on and you live well.
That is the only way to get over the evil. You don't, how many of us out there have grandparents that survived World War II and before that, the Great Depression? How many people have survived Stalin? How many people have survived Hitler? How many people migrated here after World War II that we can talk about? You don't know where you can go if you lose hope when you can look back at your grandparents and see where they came from. If you can understand that they fought to be here, fought to have your parents, and your parents fought to have you, now you have hope again.
Absolutely. And, you know, the nice thing about writing this book, I've had friends read it and they say, hey, you know, my grandma did this. She had a similar story, you know, maybe not the exact, but, and she's a hero too. And I say, absolutely. Tell that story. You know, if you don't write a book, tell your kids, tell your grandkids, you know, tell to whoever is going to listen, because all these stories can inspire hope, especially in these chaotic times.
I mean, we need the hope. I had a grandfather that survived the Great Depression and then fought in World War II.
Yeah.
So it's going from you have no hope because you don't have food. It's a different scenario. But at the same time, how did they do it? They did it because their mindset was tomorrow will be better.
Absolutely. And, you know, that's the whole key to the game. And what we're going through right now is real. Make no mistake. And whatever your problem is, it's not to compare it. Well, I don't have to deal with Stalin. Okay. Whatever it is real, and it can bring you down. It can kill you. And the key to success is getting help, is finding allies. You know, like for every downstroke my babcha had, there was always an angel waiting to bail her out. Like the priest who got her on the boat to come to the United States. She took advantage of these opportunities, right? And a lot of people would say, you know, they don't go for that. They can't see it. They just get caught up in their own sorrow, and they lose hope. They don't feel like maybe they're worthy of the opportunity, or they're so angry they can't see past their hate. They get consumed by it, and they don't see that there's other options out there.
Exactly. How many times do we, as humans, we get depressed? We stay in bed. We all know the picture of someone covered up with a blanket, not wanting to get out of bed for days on end. Why? They have lost hope. If you can find your hope, whatever it is, it could be, I'm starting a new job. I see the light. I can do something better today than yesterday. It could be anything. Then you can get over the next step.
You know, it's so true. When she finally died, she owned her own house. She had a small business. She got to meet 4 grandchildren. And that's how you win. That's how you beat those evil dictators. And as a kid, and I heard this, I'm like, let's go. You know, I wanted to get up and go start, but I didn't know how to do anything. You know, how do you actualize that? You know, it's great to get fired up by this, you know, wonderful story, but how do I get out of this hole that I'm in? And my mother, you know, was about 13 at that time. She says, well, you got to go play some football. And she steered me towards that sport, not because she wanted me to go, you know, the violence of it. You know, she was kind of
Mhm.
afraid of that part. But she knew that I would be in front of some great men. She knew that those coaches out there could get me going in the right direction. And from the first practice, you know, it was kind of amazing. I remember having to run the big lap, the warm up lap, which, you know, God knows how long it actually was, but it seemed like the Boston Marathon, you know, to a chubby kid, you know, who never did anything but Dungeons and Dragons. And, you know, I was about to die and give up and just go home and crawl into a bag of Doritos. And the captain, Jason, comes and grabs me and he says, "We're going to finish this together." Oh my goodness, you know? So, and basically drags me across the finish line. And he did that every day for about a month until I could finally, you know, got in shape and could start doing it on my own. But that was something the coaches and the players all bought into, was that we were a family, that we were all in it together, you know, just like the babushkas. We had a slogan that was "Brothers Forever." And it wasn't just something you wrote on a t-shirt, you know, because it sounded cool, you know, it was real. And those coaches and players, you know, got me through some hard times, and they showed me how to be successful. The lessons we learned on the field, you know, yes, we wanted to win those games, don't get me wrong, but they were preparing you how to become a great and successful person. And it's not just football, because that's certainly not for everybody. Like my daughter, she got into the theater. And I noticed it's pretty much the same thing, you know, without the violence. You know, while you're giving your soliloquy, nobody's trying to tackle you or something.
Right.
If you're doing a tap number, you know, you have to get hit in the head. But it's that same idea that we're a family, you know, whether you're the star, you're the understudy, you're the person working the light, the guy selling the tickets, you know, everybody's needed, everybody's important. You know, like in football, I was third string my first year. It didn't matter. I was still part of that group. And that is what helped save my life. Also was setting goals. My mother sat me down at the coffee table, you know, and she had her famous crumb cake, and, you know, it was midnight, but she was still drinking coffee and smoking, chain smoking cigarettes. And she said, "Okay, you're going to get into a great college." I'm like, "Mom, what are you talking about? I can't even spell cat. If you bought me a vowel, how am I going to get into a college?" You know, and you're going to have a football scholarship. You know, at this point, I still don't know how to play football. And you're going to get a girlfriend. You're going to get married. You know, you're going to be a success. You know, and if you knew her and you knew me at the time, you know, you might call the hospital. You know, I think this woman's not well. And she said, I said, "Well, you're crazy." She goes, What the hell else do you got to do? What else are you doing?" I'm like, "All right." And years went by, and son of a gun, it all started to happen, just as she said. You know, she got me help in school. I got a resource teacher, Mrs. Dudick, who was about 5 foot tall, and would jump up on a stool and grab my ear. You know, "Come on, we're going to do it." "Okay." You know, and knew when to kick you and when to hug you. And they demanded excellence. You know, all the adults in my life, they always demanded excellence at every turn. And just when we're about to cross the finish line and all this stuff was about to become true, she's killed it. My mother's killed in a tragic car accident as well. And that becomes another turning point in the book. And that's kind of the whole point of this book. What do you do now when the roof comes crashing in again? Fortunately for me, I had a couple things going. I had my Bobcha stories, right? Hey, she beat Stalin. Well, here comes Hitler. You know, my situation wasn't as dire, right? But it still can consume you, right? It can still bring you down. Still very real, your pain. And I also had a great community. That Brothers Forever kicked in. Teachers kicked in. People I didn't even know showed up with a tray of chicken cutlets, you know, and things of this nature, and just nick of the moment things happen, right? To try to pitch in and get you through. But at the same time, you have to accept the help.
Yes, you do.
You have to be willing to work. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna suck. It's not fair. But, you know, that's the purpose of the book, to let you know you can do it. You can do it. Look for the help, find the help, whether it's getting a therapist, getting
It doesn't matter if
whatever.
it's a reverend, religious person. It doesn't matter if it's your teachers. I had great teachers that were great mentors that knew how to kick my butt. And, otherwise I wouldn't have graduated high school. I certainly wouldn't have graduated with honors. I
Yeah.
had, senior year or junior year, 2 weeks before school starts, my grandfather, who was my mentor, died unexpectedly.
Oh,
You
God
want to
bless.
talk a downward spiral, it's 2 weeks
Yep.
before school starts. And then you go through this. It doesn't matter what your pain is. I've been through 2 divorces. Doesn't matter. I still have to get up every day. I have a great community that I built because those around me are toxic. So I
Mhm.
reached out to the positive people.
Absolutely.
You have to find the positive to get rid of the negative.
That's so good. That's so true. What you said there is the key. You built a great team.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get the right people on the bus and the wrong people off the bus.
Yes.
Um,
You have to know what strings to cut and which ones to pull closer. If they're toxic to you and they just want to keep you in that dark place, they're not good for you, and you're not going to get to the help you need until you cut the string.
that's right on the money. And you have to understand that there might be some people who want to see you fail,
Mm-hmm.
who want to hold you back, who want to keep you down. Because if you rose up and did something, what would that say about them?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. How many times as a business owner, when I was just starting out, oh, you've been at this for 2 years, you're not doing anything. It takes a long time to get where you're going, especially when you have those pulling your back.
Mm-hmm.
When you get rid of those negative people, then you expand. Then you find your light, you find your passion, you find your calling, whatever it is. It doesn't matter if you want to go into business, write a book, go into coaching, whatever your path is, you will find it.
Right. And it sounds like, with you starting your businesses and the other things you were mentioning, sounds like you're fearless. And, that's the thing. We're all actually afraid,
Mm-hmm.
but that's when you're brave,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is when you're afraid and you go and do it anyway.
Exactly. If your dream is not scaring you to death, you're not dreaming big enough.
Yes, I like that very much. I think you would have liked my mother very much. I think you would have had a great conversation with her. Things that you guys have some very nice things in common. One thing she always liked to tell me, and I think you'll appreciate this, was you can have what you want or you can have excuses.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to decide.
My grandfather said the same thing, almost the same way. You can live your life with excuses, or you can live your life by results.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent. Because you could sit there and say, like, in my case, oh, I'm an orphan, right? Boo-hoo, like learning disability, and everybody would feel bad for me.
Mm-hmm.
And rightly so. I could get a lot of sympathy, and I could be very safe. Well, he's got these problems, and everybody would give you a pat on the head. You'd be very safe, but you'd also be very miserable.
Yes.
Getting into the fight and going for a career, like you did with your businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, right? And struggling for 2 years, maybe running a small business, you might not have a paycheck for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
You still got to eat.
Still gotta eat, still gotta feed the child, still have to take care of the family, still have to deal with mom and grandma, take care of them, but you have to go forward every day.
Yeah. And that's when that's when the greatness comes. You do the thing that's hard to do and the powers come. The power comes. And that's what I was trying to inspire with this book.
And this is a great way to inspire. Putting your stories, your grandparents' stories into a book, putting your own struggle into the book. Now you're inspiring other people.
And all the people in the book, are your common, ordinary, everyday folks,
Mhm.
right? You know, I portrayed my Babcha as a superhero, and by all rights, she was. She was a regular person, right?
Mhm.
Not born into privilege, didn't have advances, you know, didn't have all this, but did great with what she had,
Mhm.
and was expected to die in a ditch somewhere, and went on and had a nice life. Um, and it's also to highlight some of those great teachers we had, the people who helped when they didn't have to. Um, you know, and I think this kind of goes to your show and what you're trying to do here. Is reminiscent of my offensive line coach when I played football, John DeLuca. One thing he taught us as linemen, you know, you're never going to get the ball, you're never going to be in the newspaper and all that sort of thing. And he created for us something known as the lineman's prayer. Now don't worry, I'm not going to convert you to a different religion or anything, but it goes as follows. It goes, we work the hardest, we're known the least, but who cares? For we are the reason. And I think we could apply that not just to linemen in a game,
Mhm.
but I've kind of applied that to my life as a father, as a husband, as a teacher and a coach, and somebody who tries to work in their community. You know, that it's doing the grunt work, you know, not for the glory, not for your own personal, you know, we're not going to build a statue to you, but it's going to make hopefully society better, lives better for everybody.
Mhm.
And if we can just get ourselves out of the way, you know, we can make this world a little bit better of a place, and
Exactly.
realize, you know, ultimately, you know, with politics blowing up and all this nonsense on both, you know, we all want the same thing. We all want to be loved. We all want to be heard. We all want to have a seat at the table, and some respect. And, you know, when we realize that, I think we can get rid of a lot of the other nonsense that we seem to keep fighting about on social media and over the Thanksgiving table.
That would be nice. That would be really, really nice to get rid of all the political at the kitchen table and get back to having family at the kitchen table.
Absolutely. And we can, you know, start arguing about who stole the apple pie or something important like that.
Yeah, something really important. Who gets the last brownie, or, you know, who gets the last whatever we're making for dinner? They're
Absolutely.
important stuff, right?
That sounds good.
Yeah, I was a fat kid growing up, so the whole food thing works for me.
All
No.
right. Well, when you check out the book, you got to look in the back. I have my mother's crumb cake recipe in there. The crumb cake is a major character in the book. So
Well, that's always wonderful to have a crumb cake recipe, because that's one recipe I don't have. Certified
absolutely.
chef, nutritionist, and I don't have a crumb cake recipe. What?
Oh, as a nutritionist, you will not like this crumb cake. No, this is
And, oh, I
this will blow up the diet.
oh, just because I'm a nutritionist and I have the license doesn't always mean I can't go a little bit easy.
Absolutely.
That's healthy for you, by the way, just on
Yes.
occasion.
Yes. Right.
You can't deprive yourself of food out all the time. You have
I
to have
agree.
that little bit of guilt.
Yeah. The balance to life. I
Mhm.
like it. Very good.
So you have this book out. Are you thinking about writing a second?
Oh, sure. You know, the second book I'm thinking about is going to be about my children. They're going to be the main characters in this one, and it's going to be about their lives and their struggles. My daughter plays a role in it in the first one, but I really want to highlight her in this next one. Both of my kids, we kind of hit the genetic lottery. Me and my wife were recessive carriers of epilepsy. So
Oh,
both of my kids,
wonderful.
yeah, have epilepsy, and their struggles and trials and tribulations dealing with that, and other things in their lives.
Mhm.
And you know, especially my daughter, what she had to go through. She had to be homeschooled for most of, not all of her high school, because of side effects from the meds, and how she just fought on like a trooper, And she's up there as one of my heroes, and all the things my son had to overcome as well in his life. And I think that'll be a nice second installment.
That would be great. As someone that has seizures, not from epilepsy, but from other medical reasons, try Plexus. And that's
Okay.
just me as a person. I've tried this. I have been seizure free for 6 years because of Plexus. It's all organic.
It's an organic. It's.
Mhm.
Are you saying Flexus or Plexus?
Plexus.
Okay, we'll write that down.
And
it's an organic product. Yeah, they're
yeah,
organic.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
Every medical anti-seizure medicine out there actually made my seizures worse. This is the first product I ever used that actually stopped. Now, it took 3 to 4 months for it to actually start working,
Right.
but and I understand.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I get the whole medical seizure. I get that.
And it's another challenge, right? So the challenges can come in any form. Epilepsy. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Right. And you don't know where the solutions. Maybe doing this podcast, maybe that's going to be a cure that gets both of my kids, back on track.
Right.
And now you just got to be able to accept that help and see if it works, and just get back in the fight there. No, but that's great.
It could help. I can't guarantee results on everyone, but it's out there. It's organic. It's not going to interact with medications. But at the same time, as someone that has seizures, you don't understand unless you have them. Waking up whenever, having every muscle in your body hurt because of whatever happened during the seizure, and then just being so tired, you don't want to move.
Right. Yeah, you can't function. It becomes all consuming.
And then you have the medication that just makes you feel worse. Unless you understand that, you won't understand epilepsy. You won't understand a person's struggle and what they're overcoming until you actually step into their shoes.
That's such a great point, stepping into their shoes. And that was one thing that always kind of frustrated us. Was there were some teachers who kind of who came to my rescue. And as we said, there were some teachers in my daughter's case who did the opposite. They maybe didn't believe her, and they're like, "Oh, you're not paying attention in class." Well, she's having dozens of micro seizures, during your class. Maybe that's why. And it's so important when you see somebody struggling or having a bad day or an abrasive attitude towards you. It's probably not you.
Yeah.
It's and just to take that moment to have some compassion, and instead of judging them and attacking them and putting them down, just say, "Hey, are you okay?"
That's a big thing, especially in schools with our teachers needing to talk to students. As a mother of an autistic child, for a teacher to say, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" That changes versus, "Hey, you're not paying attention."
Right. And it can change lives, and just having that little bit of compassion can go such a long way, and it can inspire. Oh, there you go.
Sorry, that's
it was a good ringtone.
But we are almost out of time. So how can our viewers and our listeners find you?
Sure. You can reach me. You can email me anytime you want. If you want to chat at steve.borys@gmail.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn with the same name. And you can find my book on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, as well as iTunes and Apple and all that sort of thing. It's from Page Publishing. And again, it's called How to Beat Stalin, Hitler, and the Southern State Parkway.
Awesome. And it was so great to talk to you today, because this is all the things that everyone needs to have in their lives, especially post-COVID. We all need hope.
Yes. And the other thing that I got to do that I think was important to me was I got to bring my mom back with this book.
Mhm.
She's been gone for, my goodness, over 30 years now. And in these dark times, if there's one person I could bring back to help, it would be her. And I think the first part of the book is written as conversations with her.
Mhm.
And if you're struggling, I think it would do you a lot of good to sit down and have a piece of coffee cake with Norma, my mom, and listen to some of her great advice and wisdom. And that's one of the true blessings, is that she's immortal now, thanks to this book.
That
And
is
she's going
true.
to be there to help generations not yet born with their struggles. So I was glad I
That
could.
is exactly what we need to do, is bring our ancestors and immortalize them in the pages of books, and they can help our future get to where it needs to be.
Absolutely.
But thank you so much for being on the show today.
I appreciate it. It was a pleasure. It was a great
And,
conversation.
and for our listeners and our viewers, happy reading.